Oh yeah, busy show tonight. Gonna be a fun 3 hours. There is so much news coming out of this past weekend in the sports world, and I reckon there may be more news tomorrow or the day after. You know, it's not official as it relates to Aaron Rodgers, but it might as well be official because everybody and their mother now is basically reporting that his deal or whatever it is that's going to land him in New York with the Jets is essentially happening. That we're at the doorstep of an announcement from the Packers, from Aaron Rodgers, whoever it may be. The only question I think remains is how it's going to be announced, who's going to announce it. How do you break up? How do you have such a public breakup take place? And what will the Jets have to give up in order to get Aaron Rodgers? I think that's the other question that still remains TBD is, you know, what exactly are the Jets going to have to give up? Will there or won't there be a first round pick? You know what I mean? What's the asking price ultimately? But it seems like the details are pretty buttoned up at this point in terms of the fact that Aaron Rodgers will play his football for the New York Jets. Trey Wingo of the Pro Football Network put it out there, and that's a name you trust. That's not some Johnny-come-lately. You know, he used to host NFL Live. He used to host the morning show over on ESPN Radio. I mean, that's a guy in the know. So you get the sense that we're close now. And, you know, it starts to, you start thinking now. You start putting some, you know, you start getting nostalgic a bit. You start asking yourself, what exactly, you know, does this mean in the legacy of Aaron Rodgers, that he wasn't able to finish his career in Green Bay? That it, you know, and I think there's some interesting things to talk about on this tonight, and we'll do it. The phone number, let me first of all give you that. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. We will also allow you to text the show if you want. We introduced the brand new cash-in text line last week, and we did it in a big way. We gave away a very cool autographed football that Tyrick in Austin won, listening on the horn down there. Congratulations, Tyrick. You'll be getting that football probably in the next day or two. The text line number is 888-670-8549. You can text from anywhere in America, anytime, and just shoot us a note. Anything we're talking about or anything we're not talking about that you think we should. 888-670-8549 if you want to hit us up during the show tonight. You start thinking about, you know, the legacy of Aaron Rodgers. And yes, he did bring a Super Bowl. He was able to bring a Super Bowl to Green Bay and the MVP awards and, you know, all of the greatness that is Aaron Rodgers. But you wonder if the reason he's leaving is his or it's Green Bay's. Now, obviously, they had to be in agreement on the team, and Green Bay was going to have to get what it wants. All of that's fine. But I wonder, I'm forced to ask myself, and I think 20 years from now, Aaron Rodgers will probably be able to ask himself this question. In the moment, he thinks he's done nothing wrong. In the moment, he thinks, you know, he's probably being undervalued, underappreciated, all of those things. But as time marches on, and Aaron Rodgers has a chance to reflect on this particular moment, and not today, tomorrow, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. I'm talking 10 years from now. When he's able to reflect on this moment, the moment that he gets sent packing, again, whether it's mutual, whether it's not mutual, however it may be, the reality is he became, I think, too much in terms of for the Packer organization to handle. It takes two to tango. And Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be leaving Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers had behaved in a certain way. It's not to say he's done anything illegal, he's done anything wrong, but you start to add it all up over the last couple of years. The retirement talk, year to year, not working out with the rookie receivers last year, then the ayahuasca stuff, then the COVID stuff, then I'm going to go into darkness for 4 days, all these different things. And this is just a small piece of everything that sort of encapsulates what has been Aaron Rodgers, particularly over the last few years. As, he's sort of taken on this role of, I'm smarter than everybody else in the room. And I think when he has a chance to reflect on this 10 years from now, unless he goes to the Jets and wins a Super Bowl, and let's be honest, is there anybody that in their right mind thinks he's going to win a Super Bowl with the Jets? Is there anybody out there? If there is, I want to hear you. Because he's going from a more watered-down conference in the NFC. Mind you, Tampa Bay made the playoffs last year, and we know how bad they were. To an AFC where the competition is stiff. And that might be putting it mildly. You know how good the AFC is. I told you about it last week, in case you don't remember. Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, Jacksonville on the come, San Diego with a good year. Go look at all the good quarterbacks in the American Football Conference. And that's what Aaron Rodgers at the tail end of his career is stepping into. Now, I will say this. For at least 1 year, the Jets are going to get the most motivated, late-stage, talented quarterback and the most talented, motivated Aaron Rodgers that I think anybody's gotten in the last few years. Because you could argue over the last couple of years, when somebody's talking about checking out, when somebody's talking about retiring, when somebody's talking about all these different things and jeopardy and not working out with the receivers last year and trips to, tripping on ayahuasca and all these different things. When somebody's in that frame of mind, when somebody's in that mode, they've kind of checked out. But for at least 1 year, the Jets are going to get a guy that is fully invested. You're going to get one of my favorite things you can get as a team, whether it's a trade deadline deal involving a veteran or a move like this. You're going to get a guy that for 1 year just wants to prove the world wrong. And either he can, or he comes to the realization he can't, and the Jets either get him for 1 year and he's motivated, and then year two he's kind of checked out and sort of has a farewell season with the Jets, or he just decides to hang it up after 1 year. Both are possible. But what is the legacy of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay to you? From anywhere in America tonight, 1-800-224-2004. Now that we know the end is near. And now the end is near. 800-224-2004. You want to text us? Go ahead and do it. 888-670-8549. I love reading your texts. We did it last week on the show. The all-new cash-in text line is open. 888-670-8549. From anywhere in America if you want to text in. What is the legacy of Aaron Rodgers? And like I was saying, I just want to finish with this. When 10 years from now, when his career is long done, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to take a look back and say, you know what? There were some ways and some circumstances and some things I probably could have said or done better. Because everybody, look, hindsight is 20/20. You hear it all the time, right? And whenever we have a chance to reflect on things we would do different, I could just use my own life as an example. I always do. I look at the way I handled certain things 10 years ago professionally, and then I look back at them now, 10 years later, and say, man, you know what? I might have wanted to do that a little different. I might have wanted to say that a little different. I might have wanted to be a little more artful in my response. I might have wanted to be a little more professional in my reaction to a certain situation. Those are things that you only gain in long-term retrospect. You're not going to get it now. You're not going to get a year from now. You're not going to get it 2 years from now. He probably won't get it as long as he's still playing because he's got this complex about him. I could be an MVP next year. Well, they never put the right receivers around me. Well, they shouldn't have let Devontae Adams go. And that's not to say that Aaron Rodgers has never, ever taken any responsibility. But it's always in concert with something else that he wants to go after. It's always in concert with somebody else who may have done something wrong or done him wrong. I want to know what you think. What is the legacy of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? And, again, we saw this same sort of thing kind of play out with Brett Favre in Green Bay. And then, it also makes you wonder something else that I want to get to on the other side. And remove yourself from the Brett Favre, the Mississippi allegations of him, the misappropriated money that was supposed to go to the poor. Forget all that stuff for a second. Just talk about Brett Favre as a player. And look at the fact that the last two quarterbacks in Green Bay have left town this way. We're back with more on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Da 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 da. I like to move it, move it. A whole lot of nothing. Watched a little bit of the Players' Championship. But no, just mostly stuff for my company, business related stuff. Glad to have you along for the ride. Coming up in 15 minutes, Nick Hamilton, founder of Nightcast Media. You could also catch him on SiriusXM. Get into some LA sports talk with him. Everybody's available with the Rams right now. Super Bowl winners, 15 months ago? Not even. 13 months ago? Now everything must go. Everybody apparently except for Matthew Stafford, which is the guy they should get rid of if they can. If they could find somebody to take that miserable contract off of their hands, they absolutely should. We'll talk with Nick Hamilton coming up. There's other quarterback news around the league today that we'll get into in the next hour. Jimmy Garoppolo is apparently headed to Las Vegas, and I say congratulations to Jimmy Garoppolo. I know it's the Raiders, and some people are going to say, look at what that organization has done. But the fact of the matter is, look, there's a handful of teams that win Super Bowls, and everybody else is a bunch of losers because nobody else wins Super Bowls. So, I mean, this idea that whether you win 5 games or you win 12 games and get eliminated in the playoffs, you're still coming up short of your ultimate goal. Yes, some misery is worse than others. Yes, there's a difference between chopping off a pinky and chopping off a leg. I get it. But either way, you're both losing something. And some misery is just, some of it is longer suffering and all that. But from a year-to-year standpoint, go look at who's won the last, 20 Super Bowls. I mean, look, there's just a lot of teams. You don't see a lot of first-time winners or teams winning for the first time in ages. How long has Buffalo been suffering? I mean, what's worse, to be a Raiders fan or to be a Bills fan that lost in the championship game as many times as they did? Now you've got Josh Allen and you're supposed to be this great team and you don't win. I don't know what's worse. Being a team that just perennially sucks and, the band that can't shoot straight versus teams that are actually expected to do really well and then don't. Don't even sniff it. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. 888-670-8549 is the text line. In particular, I love to hear from you guys on the text line. 888-670-8549. We gave away a football last week on the show. Great autograph football on the show. And that was a lot of fun. But hit me up on the text line. What is the legacy of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? Now, on top of that, there is something interesting to bring up here. Now, look, maybe it just so happens that the Packers got 2 quirky guys back-to-back to be the star quarterbacks of their football team. Maybe it is a possibility that just Brett Favre was, we thought Brett Favre was, the Wrangler jeans guy, All-American. He was just like us. We had to deal with a painkiller problem, and that sort of brought people closer to him. He let people in, and then you started to learn. Well, maybe he's a little seedier when the whole Jets massage thing happened, and now you're learning a lot about him post-playing career in terms of the way he conducts himself. So you start to think, okay. Maybe the dude's just a little eccentric, right? And then you get Aaron Rodgers, who had to toil and suffer behind Brett Favre, waiting to get his opportunity for so long, despite the fact that everybody knew he was a really good quarterback. He got drafted late, had to sit in the draft room, waiting to get picked. Then he finally does, after slipping down the board in the first round. Winds up in Green Bay. Wins a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy. Doesn't win anything else. Again, history of the game, when you start talking about the greatest to play the game, a lot of guys have won 1 Super Bowl. Eli Manning's got 2. Peyton's got 2. A lot of the great quarterbacks, they got more than 1. The greatest of the great. Patrick Mahomes got 2, and he's only been in the league a handful of years. Aaron Rodgers played all this time. You'd think he walked on water. He's got 1. Well, it's everybody else. But it does make you ask the question. Is there something in the water in Green Bay? And by that I mean, is the organization just faulty when it comes to handling these guys on the tail end of their careers? Or was it the fact that they just got 2 eccentric guys back to back that happened to be 2 of the greatest gunslingers to play the game, but also came with a little bit of head baggage, right? Maybe it's that. Which is it? Maybe it's a little bit of both. Because watching the way this whole thing has been handled by the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, I think it's a pox on both their houses. I think both sides have handled it poorly. It's not always one or the other. I know it's not a popular thing in sports radio to say that it's both sides. You know, the both sidesism thing in sports. Everybody's got to pick a side in sports, right? You listen to all these different sports radio hosts. Stephen A. Smith, who I don't think is great, but you know, these guys that are on everywhere, right? And when you listen to all these different guys, everybody's got a side. I'm on Aaron Rodgers' side, or I'm on, you know, the Packers' side, or I'm on Kirk Cousins' side. We had these arguments with Nick Ferguson and I. Well, I'm on Lamar Jackson's side. He should get every penny that he's asking for. He should get a guaranteed deal because Deshaun Watson gets a guaranteed deal. Right? Everybody's got a side. I can look at both sides of anything. And I think when it comes to this particular issue, I think there's probably enough blame to go around to both sides. Both in terms of the way Aaron has handled things publicly and how the Packers have handled things behind the scenes. Aaron goes out and runs his mouth about everything. But the fact of the matter is, he's got some legitimate gripes in terms of the way the player personnel decisions for this organization have been handled over the last handful of years. I mean, he's got absolute right to be unhappy with the way some things have been handled. And ultimately, you know, once this, and what's really going to be interesting to hear, once this move with Aaron Rodgers is official and he's in a Jets, you know, press conference, and then he goes on the talk show circuit. He does the shows like Pat McAfee, his buddy, and all that stuff. Then it gets interesting to me. Because then I want to see it. Does he show some restraint? Is he able to show some restraint? Or will Aaron Rodgers in that position just totally be unhinged? Totally be unleashed to basically say everything he's wanted to say about Gutekunst, about everybody in that organization. That's what I want to see. By the way, we love to talk about the betting odds on this show. The futures bet on the Jets is now plus 1,500. The New York Jets are tied. The Chiefs are at plus 600. The Eagles, Bills, Bengals, 49ers are at plus 900. You know who's next? The Cowboys and the Jets. It's a sucker bet. It's a total sucker bet. Unless you firmly believe that Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets was the piece of the puzzle. I mean, this prediction is basically saying that, you know, the Jets are going to be playing, or at least going to, you know, be a wild card team, possibly a division winner, and that they're winning at least one game in the postseason. If you look at these odds and want to believe them, the Jets are plus 1,500 in Las Vegas right now to win the Super Bowl. Let that sink in for a minute. Stew around in those juices for a minute. It's laughable. I mean, outside of say, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Buffalo, maybe Cincinnati, are there any teams on this list that you could really put a futures bet on the way they're comprised right now? And I say that even with deference and respect to the 49ers because they don't even know who their quarterback is. Hell, they signed Sam Darnold today. I mean, it's kind of laughable when you think about it, isn't it? 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. The text line is open, 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. We're going to come back on the other side. Nick Hamilton, founder of Nightcast Media. Could also catch him on SiriusXM. A lot of news coming out of LA these days. We'll tackle it with him next on The Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Welcome back to the show. Matt Verderam coming up in a sec. Thank you for being with us. SportsMap Radio. SportsMap Radio app. Good to have you with us tonight. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. If you have any questions, you want me to pop into our guest, Nick Hamilton. If you text me something good, I might do it. 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. Nick is the founder of Nightcast Media. Also, catch him on Sirius XM Radio. Gives us a few minutes today. Now, I'm going to ask you about LA sports here because there's a few different things going on. But first off, I want to get your reaction on the Aaron Rodgers to the Jets stuff and sort of the slow drip that we've all been subjected to here over the last, only because we talked about it at the top of the show tonight. I'm curious from where you're sitting, what you make of the way this divorce is sort of happening, this slow motion car crash.
It's interesting because you hear a lot of reports, you can hear a lot of things even away from the reports that indicate that he's more likely going to be a new Jet. You thought for a moment they actually cleared cap space and they actually were on the phone with Aaron Rodgers, or at least his reps. And sometimes it's time to move on and move forward. And the Packers drafted Jordan Love for a reason. He's a young quarterback. And the Packers need to turn the page. And I think if Aaron Rodgers wants to continue playing football, the New York Jets may be the best place for him to play football. I think it's going to be making a more competitive conference, especially with the Miami Dolphins recently did with Jalen Ramsey adding into that secondary. So now you got the Miami Dolphins, you have the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, and now you potentially could have Aaron Rodgers in that same division. And nobody's talking about the Patriots. Who knew? So I think it's is. I think when you look at overall, the perspective of the AFC East, it makes it fun again. It makes the AFC East fun again. They're no longer going to be the AFC East. And I think Aaron Rodgers is a shot in arm to the New York Jets leader. Robert Saleh needs to make sure that his key card continues to work with the New York Jets organization. So he ain't trying to move around. He ain't trying to go back and move around. I think he's pretty settled in New York or in Jersey. And I think that's where he wants to remain. But in order to do that, he's going to have to win games. So you need a quarterback in this quarterback-driven league to get you some wins and get to the playoffs.
Talking with Nick Hamilton, founder of Nightcast Media, also Sirius XM Radio. You can catch him there. Is basically everything available? Is it like a yard sale for the Rams right now? You saw Ramsey go. They're saying Matthew Stafford's that they're not getting rid of him, but I think if they could find somebody to take that monstrosity of a contract that they have to pay him, that they would. Is basically everybody available now?
The LA Rams have become the Florida Marlins back in the late 90s. Remember those fire sales of Florida Marlins?
Yes, I do.
Everything must go. Double coupon day. That's what I feel the Rams have become, unfortunately. I think I agree with you. I think if they find the right deal that fits them for Matthew Stafford so they can unload that hefty contract, that Death Row Records contract that they decided to sign, he decided to force them into, I think all bets, I think nothing is off the table. I mean, outside of Cooper Kupp, I think nothing is off the table. It wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, if they trade Allen Robinson to get that contract off the book. Hell, they might even try to trade Van Jefferson at some point. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And then you have to question, okay, what is Aaron Donald really coming into this coming season? What does he have left to prove? Because this team is obviously not going to be a quality team that they've been in a couple of years, that they were a couple of years ago. So it begs the question, like, okay, does Aaron Donald come back, or does he retire? Or does he play one more season and then just say, hey, man, I'm going to hang it up? He's an automatic Hall of Famer, first ballot, if you ask me. And what else does he have left to prove, to be honest with you? Like, what else is there left?
Is there any sense, Nick, would he want to even play somewhere else if he still feels like playing, or do you think he wants to retire a Ram?
I think he wants to retire a Ram. I think he likes. I mean, the Rams organization is one of the great organizations in the league, right? And I think they have some very smart people in their organization. I just think that they never built this team to be a dynasty like we've seen in Kansas City, for example. Like Kansas City built those teams to be a dynasty. That's why they won 2 Super Bowls out of the 3 trips that they made to the Super Bowl. Because they built dynasties, and they're continuing to build. As long as they have a healthy Patrick Mahomes and surround him with weapons, they're going to continue to be at least competitive and make deep playoff runs, if not get to the Super Bowl and win another one. in the foreseeable future. So I think the Rams have to go kind of start from scratch. I think that they're cap heavy. I mean, they are extremely cap heavy, and they're gonna be in some serious trouble for the next couple of years until they get out of this situation and really build that team. And I think they need to learn from these experiences that, look, you need to start building for a dynasty. I think you need to start. You did what you need to do as far as cashing all your chips in and got you a Super Bowl, which was great. And now I think you have to realize, okay, look, this is LA. You're going to have to compete in this very competitive market. This is a Dodger and Laker town. You also have USC football back on the rise. If Lincoln Riley can somehow get into the college football playoff, which he was just a game away from doing this past season, if he can figure that out and get into the college football playoff, and let's say they make the national championship, who do you think LA is going to be talking about? They're going to be talking about the USC Chargers and Lincoln Riley. They're not going to be talking about the Los Angeles Rams, not in the most positive light, especially if they're not winning ball games. So you have to really make sure that you stay in that tier. If you're going to be the third team to be talked about in Los Angeles and recognized and respected, you're going to have to start winning ball games and start winning championships.
Nick Hamilton, founder of Nightcast. Nick Hamilton is the founder of Nightcast Media. Also catch him over on SiriusXM, joining us here in our 2-for-1 tonight on the Cash In SportsMap Radio, talking all things LA sports. Moving in over to the NBA here for a second here, and I know you love the Clippers. Give me some thoughts on this Clipper team. You know what sold me? I've been waiting, for Kawhi and this whole team to be sort of together. I was curious to see how Westbrook would be integrated into what they do. But it was the game against Denver that they lost. I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday night, maybe 2 weeks ago. That I started to come around a little bit because I wanted to see how they played on the road. And they didn't have Zubats in that game. I was interested to see how they played in that spot on the road, and they basically played Denver to a draw. And there wasn't anything that I came away from in that game that said to me they couldn't do that in a 7-game series against that team. I like the way they match up with them. Give me some thoughts. And look, Jokic is a nightmare for a lot of teams. Give me some thoughts on what you've seen here out of the Clippers as of late, and whether you're buying the idea that regardless of where they are in this jumbled Western Conference, playoff seeding, that they can make a run.
I think it depends on where they're seeded. They can make a run. I went to the Knicks game on Saturday when they played the Clippers, and the thing about the Clippers is that they came out in the second half with a lot more intensity, a lot more discipline. But I think it's not just up to PG and Kawhi. PG and Kawhi they combined for 60 points on Saturday against the Knicks in that win. I'm not concerned about PG and Kawhi. I'm more concerned about the surrounding pieces. Marcus Morris Sr., who's not been consistent as he should have been. Mason Plumlee out there looking like the Pillsbury Doughboy, soft as baby food when it comes to being under the basket and not being as aggressive as he was when he first came, when he was first traded to the Clippers. So I need to see that intensity back in Mason Plumlee, especially in the paint and under the basket. Also, too, Russell Westbrook. I mean, he's like I said, he's been up and down like a stock exchange. So I think, Russell. It's going to be interesting to see how Russell Westbrook continues to fit into the Ty Lue's offense because he looked absolutely putrid on Saturday. I mean, Eric Gordon. Thank God for Eric Gordon being able to really kind of rally the troops a little bit and really get things going. And when you have PG and Kawhi in that mix, it's really hard to, stop those guys. But I'm just looking at defensive, like transition defense is going to have to improve. I think they're rebounding and keeping teams from getting a lot of second chance opportunities, especially when you're in a 7-game series in the playoffs. So you mentioned Denver, which I'm not really high on, but the team that really concerns me are the Phoenix Suns. I think if you have a healthy Kevin Durant with the 3 juggernauts and Devin Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, I think that's going to be a very, very big time brick wall for the Clippers, especially if they have to match up in the first round. I think you're going to say Warriors have to look out for them, but I think the sleeper team that you really got to look out for are the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think the Sacramento Kings are that Cinderella story that is really for real. It's not a fairy tale. I think they are legit. I like the leadership of Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I like the Aaron Fox's leadership abilities. And I think Mike Brown should be definitely up for Coach of the Year. If not, he should win Coach of the Year.
I'm with you.
Because of what he was able to accomplish in one season with that franchise, with that team, and really, really develop an identity for that team, and really develop a culture for that team.
I got to run, Nick, but always appreciate it, and I'm with you on the Kings. Thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Nick. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we ended that right on time, I think. Yeah, that worked. Get your brackets in yet? I don't even bother anymore. I retired a champion. What was it? gosh, it might have been so it's 2023. Might have been about 9 years ago. Might have been 2014, if I'm not mistaken. I ran the NBC Sports Radio bracket. Rest in peace, NBC Sports Radio. We remember you well. But no, seriously, I ran the NBC Sports Radio bracket in 2014, and I won it. I know, everybody must have been like, oh boy, that's shady. But no, I really did. I actually won the bracket. And that was the last time I think I did an NCAA men's tournament bracket. That's it. Because let's be honest, who doesn't like to go out a champion, right? I got to go out a winner. Justin Barbosa is our producer engineer on the show tonight. Have you done a bracket, Justin? Are you going to? Come on, man. You follow that stuff. Let's go. No? What'd you say? Yeah, I mean, come on. You should at least do one just for fun, so it's something to watch while you're doing the tournament. Be one of those people, be in whatever percentile of the people who have like X number of picks right. I think this year is as hard as any year, though. I really do. Because I just think and I don't even care, who your favorite team is or any of that stuff. If you watched college basketball this year, and it was basically it felt like every week there was a new number one for much of this season. And now here we are at the end of the season. And the Alabamas and Houstons of the world, and there's a couple of blue bloods in there as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, UConn is a 4 seed. I was talking about them last week on the show. Look at UConn as a 4 seed. And I don't know what the odds on them are. I'd have to go look at the futures betting on it, which I haven't done since last Thursday when we were on the show. So Houston's plus 500, Alabama's plus 800, Kansas is plus 1,200. Anybody who's going to tell you that they know, who the favorites are and all that stuff. I was listening to one guy on TV tonight say, well, it's usually a lock that a number one is going to make it to the Final Four, right? If there was ever a year that I would run from the idea, of chalk, this is the year. I would run from chalk. Now, UConn is plus 2,500. I think last week when we did the show, they might have been 4,500, 5,000. I don't remember. We were talking about it last week on the show, though. And I was saying that I thought UConn was a good value. I still think UConn is a good value at 2,500. Had some good wins on the docket this year. Some good wins in the ledger, if you will. But I mean, how do you really handicap this thing? Maybe you just make out a bunch of different brackets. But no matter how many brackets you make out, the chances of being able to, get anything correct. Boy, what is going on here? All right. The odds of being able to get anything close to correct this year in particular, good luck with it. I'm just not. I've given up because it's literally, I think they said the chances of getting a completely correct bracket, I'd just be happy if I got my Final Four picks correct. But the chances, I think that they said it's quintillion. It's like 1 in quintillion. Like, you have better odds of getting hit by lightning. You have better odds of, of getting mauled by a bear. And I'm not talking about Cocaine Bear. You got better odds of, just about anything than being able to get a perfectly correct bracket. I know there's these contests out there. Win $1 million if you get a complete bracket correct. You can give it a try. It certainly makes the tournament more fun. I'm looking forward to it. The madness begins with the first 4, I believe tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. The early odds in Southeast Missouri State, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, The early game tomorrow, we'll let you know what happens in that one. Pittsburgh and Mississippi State hooking up as well. Pittsburgh and Mississippi State. Well, we'll see what happens. Anyway, we'll get into it a little bit more tomorrow night on the show in terms of the betting side of the college basketball tournament. Maybe we'll even do something on the women. Betting changes all of this stuff in terms of the interest level. If you're looking for something to bet on, then you're going to go research it and find something to bet on. If you're a huge women's college basketball fan, it's one thing. But if you're just looking for something to bet on, guess what? You can do it with the women's basketball too. Hell, you can bet on the NIT. Toledo and Michigan tomorrow night. There's a whole bunch of games in that. I felt bad for Yale. They had a great coach there in James Jones. Yale lost to Princeton in the Ivy League tournament championship game on, I think it was Sunday morning. I was watching it. Yale was the number 1 seed. Princeton, I believe, was the number 2. Yep. Those Ivy League teams, man, they are tough outs. They are tough outs in the NCAA tournament. So we'll keep an eye on the tournament and all of its splendor. Next hour, we'll get into another quarterback that made news today. Everybody's beating Aaron Rodgers to the punch. Everybody's beating the Packers to the punch. The Packers are just dragging this thing out. First, it was Derek Carr last week. Then it was Sam Darnold today, who landed in San Francisco with the Niners. Now, apparently, it's Jameis Winston, who's staying put in New Orleans, which is, I mean, look, you take the job where you can get it, but I'm kind of surprised that Jameis Winston didn't want to go to a situation. Maybe they've told him he can compete, but I can't imagine it's any competition when they just signed Derek Carr to a $1 zillion contract, and now he's going to have Jameis Winston playing behind him, competing with him. You know, Jameis Winston still wants to be a starting quarterback in this league. If the guy could stay healthy, might actually be one. But Jimmy Garoppolo lands in Las Vegas with the Raiders. Vic Tafur will join us in the next hour of the show, just under an hour from now. With The Athletic covers the Raiders, we'll get some thoughts with him on the move the Raiders made to get Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think it's the best possible spot he could have landed. We'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes as well. Ja Morant, that story gets a bit more complicated as you talk about a Grizzlies team that's sort of unraveling in front of your eyes between the Steven Adams injury and the Ja Morant news today. And if you haven't heard it, we'll get into it in the next hour. He ain't coming back for a while. Now, look, I suppose you could say it doesn't really matter as long as he's back for the postseason. And you get the sense that they're going to have him step away from the team as long as possible and let things die down. And I'm not being completely cynical here when I say I'm sure that there is some aspect of this of them wanting this kid to be able to get his life on track. There's got to be something to that. But we'll give you the full story coming up a little later on in the next hour of the show. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You want to text the show, go ahead and do it. 888-670-8549. You can text us from anywhere in America, anytime, any question. I will answer it. 888-670-8549 if you want to text the show a little later on as well. As I said, we'll get into the Jimmy G story. Golden State is absolutely wiping the floor with Phoenix tonight. Good luck live betting that game. I mean, the numbers are just insane. It's 57-32 with 7:39 to go in the second quarter between the Warriors and the Phoenix Suns tonight at Chase Center. I'll tell you the game to watch tonight, and I wish it was the one that's on TV. Sacramento and Milwaukee. If you don't know by now, you better ask somebody. Sacramento is the real deal. Up 10 on Milwaukee late second quarter. We'll keep tabs on that. Maybe have a live bet for you as well. The cashing continues. Another hour next. Aaron Rodgers stuff and the interview with Nick Hamilton for the podcast. Do I have an interview the top of this segment? No. No, I said I have an interview at 8:45. Why? Yeah, I'll take Dave. Okay. He's there, right? Okay. All right. God. Another hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Busy hour ahead. If we do any NBA live betting tonight, it's probably going to be on this Milwaukee-Sacramento game. We'll keep tabs on that for you and I'll let you know what's going on. Where are we right now in that game? Let me give you a little flavor for what's going on in that game. Phoenix trailing Golden State 62-39, 5:31 to go second quarter. Sacramento on top of Milwaukee 61-53, 29 seconds to go in the second. I mean, look, if I'm looking at anything there, it's probably the under at 242.5, 242.5. No official pick yet, though. We'll keep an eye on that. We were undefeated last week until Thursday rolled along, and then we went, bleh. We died on Thursday, unfortunately. How about Jimmy Garoppolo? Living his best life, and he'll do it. I mean, is there any town that was more tailor-made for a guy than Las Vegas is for Jimmy Garoppolo? Raiders reportedly get Garoppolo 3 years, $67.5 million, including $34 million guaranteed, according to Adam Schefter. That's a good deal for Jimmy. I think he should have gotten as much as Derek Carr. But, he gets reunited with Josh McDaniels. Anybody who knows anything knows McDaniels was the offensive coordinator during Garoppolo's 3 years in New England. Granted, he didn't play, but he certainly was able to get a taste and a flavor for what Josh McDaniels does and how he operates. So the Raiders released Derek Carr last month and Jarrett Stidham. And is there, other than the Jets, which I think we all kind of knew was going to happen, other than the Jets, was there a better situation out there left for Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, let's look at it. Carolina, no. I don't know what's going on in Arizona with Kyler Murray, but he didn't want to play, basically replacement to Kyler Murray until Kyler Murray comes back. So that wasn't going to happen. Houston, that's a dumpster fire. Oh, but they got a new head coach. And that's great. And DeMeco Ryan certainly knows Jimmy Garoppolo. But that's not a surprise that, that wouldn't be a choice he wants. Indianapolis, Atlanta. Now, you could argue, from a record standpoint and closeness to being able to make the playoffs and all those different things, that certainly there might have been other options out there. But I mean, let's keep in mind, the Raiders lost a lot of close games last year. I mean, go and look at what the Raiders, and I'll get to Dave in Connecticut in a second. Dave, don't move. I'll get you in a second. But go look at last year. And let's just go through it here real quick, because I think there's something instructive that we can get out of sort of the law of averages. And I know for Raider fans it doesn't make you all that happy, but last year lost. Here we go. Ready? Week 1 they lose by 5 to the Chargers. Week 2 they lose by 6 in overtime to Arizona. Week 3 they lose by 2 points to Tennessee. Week 4, they lose by a point to Kansas City. Week 8, they get shut out. Week 9, they lose by a touchdown. Week 10, they lose by 5. Week 14, they lose by a point. Week 16, they lose by 3. Week 17, they lose in overtime, and they get their doors blown off in Week 18 when everybody's kind of mailed it in and Jarrett Stidham is your quarterback. But I think about that for a second. And they lost, by the way, they lost by 3 to the 49ers with Stidham at quarterback in Week 17. So take all that under advisement. There was one game that mattered where they actually got their doors blown off and got their what's handed to them. And that was the game in New Orleans in Week 8. Other than that, they were in every single game. Law of averages tells you they're getting some of those games next year. And they won. They still, with all of that being said, they won 6 games last year. You win half those games, all of a sudden you're a 9-win team. At least a 9-win team. So if there's one team that is poised, I think, to have a big bounce back year, it's probably the Raiders. And Garoppolo has a chance to be the guy that leads them in that effort next year. I think it's a great signing. I really do. I think it's a great signing. Vic Tafur will join us, covers the Raiders for The Athletic. He'll join us coming up 40 minutes from now. We'll get some thoughts with him. I think it could be the most perfectly fitted signing of this offseason so far is Garoppolo to the Raiders. I really do. All right. All that being said, Dave in Connecticut has waited long enough. Dave, I think you're going to be paying off a bet to me shortly, aren't you? Yep, and that ain't happening. Yes, I'm sure. No, he's signing. He's going to the Jets. He's getting traded to the Jets. It's not done, but everybody's reporting that it's done. Until the Packers put out a press release, nothing is done. But I mean, this thing seems like, the most sure bet that you could possibly get. That's a good question. I think the Packers were probably waiting to see if any other teams jumped into the mix. Now, supposedly there were 4 teams, according to my source last week, Matt Verderam, who joins us on this show from Sports Illustrated. He said there were 4 teams that were in the mix for him, but maybe the Jets are going to put together the best package ultimately. Did I read right, by the way? You said, did I read right, by the way, that you said Jay Billis is picking UConn to win the whole thing? Wow. 20. No, they're plus 2,500. How do you not? I mean, $10 to win 250? Yeah, I mean, $10. That's two Starbucks drinks for me. That's nothing. It's cause, oh God, it can't get here fast enough, man. I've only been watching the Yankees spring training games, and only when Jason Dominguez plays, because that guy is the future of the Yankees, and boy, is he smacking the ball around. I agree. I got to be honest, though. Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, I'm one of these guys that enjoys sitting at a baseball game. I like the slow pace. I get that there are some people that don't, and the younger ADD generation, wants everything fast and wants to be in and out in 2.5 hours. That's all fine. It doesn't matter to me one way or another. I'm a diehard baseball fan, so for me, it's not difficult. Absolutely. Well, we're gonna try. We're gonna try to see if we can get you a win tonight on this late game going on between Sacramento and the Bucks. All right. All right. All right. I gotta go. Love Dave in Connecticut. Our P1 of P1s. I'm saying it right now. Let's go under on the Kings and the Bucks. Lock it in, Justin Barbosa. 240.5 right now on the Kings and Bucks. If you want to put a live bet in, our official cash in live bet, Kings and Bucks under 240.5. We're back with more on the other side. I'll say. What you want, but don't play games, my fan. Well, at least the Suns have made a game of it by halftime. because it's the NBA and everybody makes a run. Warriors lead the Suns 75-58 at the break in San Francisco. Boy, the money line on Phoenix, plus 1,060. I'm sorry. Look, I get that no Kevin Durant and they're on the road and Warriors have already put up 75 in the first half. All that's great. And I'm not saying I would put a wager on the Suns at a plus 1,060, but they're at the half. I know, Golden State has played better in the third quarter as of late. Maybe, I don't know, man. Plus 1,060. It's hard not to put anything on an NBA team down 17 at the half at plus 1,060. I mean, that is literally a $10 bet to win $106. And count how many times this year you've seen a team down 17 come back in the second half. And again, I know there's no Kevin Durant, but Phoenix was able to make a run late in that first half to get it to 75-58, 17-point game. That's doable. The total, by the way, 251.5, also known as 251.5. Bucks and the Kings at the half. We have given you the official cash-in live wager of the night. 240.5 going under. Dave in Connecticut, that includes you. They're at 115 at the break. 240.5. I'm not going to lie. Kind of like that pick. I might put more than a few bucks on that one. Get it? Bucks? King? No? Okay. Sorry. Scotty Scheffler, your winner at the Players' Championship this weekend, by the way. They were all playing for second. I mean, he ran away and hid on Sunday. Some guys get protective of Scotty Scheffler, man, he is about as exciting as off-white paint. From a personality standpoint, I mean, it doesn't get any more boring, but the guy is one hell of a golfer. What have they said? What they say? He's won 13 tournaments. I forget what the number is. It's some crazy number of tournaments he's won in the last 14 or 15 months. And now he's the number one player in the world again, official world golf rankings. It's all this weird system, balanced, weighted stuff. I don't really care about that. Look, between him and Jon Rahm, you got two of the best golfers in the world, but let's be honest. Does that really excite you? You need Rory to be in the mix. We get to Augusta and the Masters. You need Tiger to be there and be in the mix. And for all these clowns in the sycophantic live golf media who are like, see, they're missing those live golfers to make it exciting. That's why the Players' Championship isn't the fifth major anymore. It's because all those great golfers are at live golf now. What, you mean like Pat Perez? Come on. You mean like Henrik Stenson? Grief. Phil Mickelson can't break 75 these days. I mean, that's what the PGA Tour is missing right now. You want to talk about Cameron Smith? Okay, fine. You want to talk about guys like that? I get it. But he's another guy that carries no excitement whatsoever around the golf course. Listen, you're talking about any of these individual sports, whether you're talking about golf, whether you're talking about tennis, hell, whether you're talking about bowling, you need figures that excite people and get them to want to watch. Rory makes you want to watch. Rory has really spruced it up over the last several years. He makes you want to watch. But, you look at a lot of these live golf guys. Are those guys that you're getting excited to watch on the weekend? Not really. Jon Rahm's a fiery guy from the other side of the world, but that's okay. I'll tell you right now, man. I am I'm very interested to see what kind of a rating the Masters does this year. Now, again, those Live Golf guys are going to be in it, so it's certainly going to help. But I think that tension, that underlying tension between the Live Golf and PGA Tour guys, that Masters is going to be a tournament unlike any I think the game has ever seen. I mean that. That's not me being hyperbolic. I think that Masters is going to be the most fascinating Masters. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know, who winds up winning the thing. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying the dynamic in personalities with the Live Golf guys, the Patrick Reeds of the world, the Dustin Johnsons, the Mickelsons that are all going to be there playing. It's going to be a really interesting tournament to watch. There is news on the Ja Morant front. We'll get to that coming up in about 9 minutes on the program. They have started the third quarter in Sacramento with the Kings leading the Bucks 62-58. You know Milwaukee's going to make a run in that game. That's why I'm not talking. That's why to me, the wager in that game has nothing to do with the spread at 3.5 or the money line either way. It's all about the total. That's a big game for Sacramento. That's a show me kind of game for Sacramento tonight. Because a lot of people think it's a nice story and Mike Brown for Coach of the Year. All that stuff is great. But ultimately, is Sacramento a contender? Everybody below them in the West is getting tons of love. Sacramento might wind up being the 2 seed in the West, especially with the injury to Kevin Durant. And everybody takes Denver seriously. And until the Ja Morant stuff, everybody took Memphis seriously. And the Clippers. And even still the Warriors, who can't play a lick of defense. They're still getting love. Everybody's just glossing over the Kings as a contender. Nice story, yes. Contender, no. And if you look at them right now from a NBA Finals futures bet perspective, you could still get Sacramento right now at plus 7,500. Lay 100, win 7,500 if the Kings could win an NBA championship. And again, if you put me, if you gave me truth serum, do I think the Kings are winning a title? No, but in terms of value, the Knicks, the Kings, still the 2 best values out there. I mean, heck, the Warriors are a 500 basketball team and they're plus 1,100. That's not value. It's still a nice number. If I laid $10 on them and they won 110 is nice. But the real value is still in Sacramento. It's still in the Knicks, despite the fact they lost 2 of 3 on this West Coast trip. Milwaukee at plus 290. Boston at plus 310. Denver at plus 650. Phoenix at plus 650. The Warriors at plus 1,100. And rounding it out, the Grizzlies and Clippers at plus 1,600. Yeah, there's more, and you can go look at them online yourself if you want. I'll give you the 76ers at plus 1,700. Everything after that is plus 3,000 and huge underdog territory. I mean, they have Dallas at plus 3,000, while Sacramento is plus 7,500. Think that over for a second. Tell me how that makes any sense whatsoever. How the Dallas Mavericks, who are basically a 500 team, are getting more love than Sacramento, more love than the Knicks. Just because they got 2 guys on their team that are really good. What about the rest of the roster? Doesn't it matter? I'm telling you, if you're throwing your money on those teams, you're just throwing your money away. Plain and simple. You're just throwing your money away. If you want to go start throwing it on Dallas, it's brutal. Clippers is interesting at plus 1,600 though. Like I said, what I've seen out of them lately gives me reason to believe they could make a deep run at the very least. But best value, still Sacramento, still the Knicks. The Bucks right now trail Sacramento 67-64, 9:23 to go in the third quarter. So the scoring pace has jumped up a little bit. We'll keep an eye on that. There is Ja Morant news to get to. That's coming up on the other side. I think it's something that you could certainly look at as good news in this story. I'll explain why next on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio.
Raiders were interested, and I think a lot of people assume that he'll wind up on the Jets if he's traded.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
How likely is it, do you think, Rodgers winds up with the Raiders? Because right now, it seems like we all thought the Raiders were interested, and I think a lot of people assume that he'll wind up on the Jets if he's traded.
Trading picks for can't see the Raiders getting him in that.
All right, Vic Tafer joining us in 15 minutes to break down the Raiders' decision to go and get Jimmy Garoppolo, 3-year deal. I think it's a great deal for the Raiders and for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't see any odds on the Raiders just yet. I was just trying to look during the break to see. Let's see to win the division how this changes their odds. I mean, the Raiders. They're plus 1,300 to win the AFC West, and obviously that's because of Kansas City being as good as they are. I mean, you got Jimmy Garoppolo. You team him up with Devontae Adams. I mean, look, it's funny. The Raiders are plus 1,300. The Chargers are plus 350. The Broncos are plus 460. How would you not put the Raiders above the Chargers or the Broncos? Certainly above the Broncos. Win totals for next year. Only one up there right now is the Saints. 9.5. I'll tell you, I think the Raiders could win 10 games next year. I know. I haven't even seen the schedule yet. Don't matter. Law of averages. You look at all those games, all those close games they lost. There's no way they're losing all those close games this year. And I think there's going to be, much like I said, I think Aaron Rodgers, I talked about at the top of the show tonight, that I think for 1 year, you get it's a hyper-motivated, hyper-focused Aaron Rodgers. And maybe it's just because he wants to prove he can still be the best and win an MVP. But if he plays at an MVP level, the end result is still the same. The Jets are going to have a chance to go deep into the postseason. With that defense, offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. I mean, they are going to paint the town green for the Jets next year in New York. They just are. And if it takes, soothing Aaron Rodgers' ego, if it takes him wanting to prove to everybody he can still play at an elite level coming off a down year, granted he had the thumb injury, but if I'm a Jets fan, for 1 year, you're going to get everything you got from Aaron Rodgers. And I think, look, you could say the same for the Saints with Derek Carr, who wants to prove the Raiders wrong. And now you're going to get it with Jimmy Garoppolo out in the AFC West with the Raiders, trying to prove that he could still play at this elite level. Again, there is not, other than Aaron Rodgers, there is not a quarterback on the market that won more than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not Derek Carr. It's, maybe, I guess, Matt Ryan to some extent, because he's actually been to a Super Bowl too and lost there just like Jimmy G did. But, Jimmy G was literally one throw away from winning a Super Bowl. Anyway, Vic Tafer will join us from The Athletic, their senior NFL writer over there as well. Get some thoughts with him coming up in about 11 minutes. Ja Morant is stepping away from the Grizzlies. And I, for one, am happy to see it. Not because I want to see the guy succeed, not because I want to see him fail, any of that stuff. You just want the kid to get his life on track. He's 23 years old and clearly was spinning out of control off the floor. Now, you can watch a guy on the court and be so in control and be a star and just put it in autopilot in a good way and just be able to light up any team any night and make the most dazzling plays. And then you sit there and scratch your head and say, but how could it be so off the rails off the court? Especially within the confines of an NBA season. You see this in the NFL all the time. During the season, guys, there's structure, there's routine, there's detail. There's consequences. All of those things are in place during the regular season. Then during the NFL offseason, God only knows what happens, and you just hold your breath and you close your eyes and you sit on the edge of your seat and you just hope some bad story doesn't come out of the NFL involving your favorite team or the favorite player that you have on a favorite team, right? We see it all the time. During the season, rarely are you getting incidents that really spell trouble for a team or a player. When you watch a Ja Morant get into this kind of trouble during the season, again, outside of like Dennis Rodman, who just did whatever he wanted back in the 90s, right? Rodman could just do whatever he wanted. We've all seen the stories by now. But you look at Ja Morant, 23 years old, just his third season in the league, and everything going like completely bat spit crazy off the court. And you don't see that in the NBA. Guys don't generally have these sorts of problems in season, which tells you something's got to be wrong. And we found out just how wrong it has to be, because Morant has entered a counseling program. Sources telling ESPN on Monday he's going to a counseling program in Florida, and there is no timetable on a return for him this season. So he's been seeking assistance for what he described in a statement last week as a need to get help and work on learning better methods of dealing with stress and his overall well-being. So now he's out of Memphis on a leave of absence from the team. Franchise said that he'd be out through at least Wednesday's game against the Heat. But now, with this news, be lucky if you see him again before the end of the regular season. You have to think they know when they'd like to have him back. They know as an organization what's going on. I just think they're keeping it very quiet. NBA is still investigating. Memphis officials have repeatedly indicated publicly Morant will be held accountable for a pattern of questionable decision-making and behavior. And you know what? Kudos to the Grizzlies. Maybe they didn't do enough up until now, but they have clearly put their foot down with this guy who is basically the key as to whether or not they can win an NBA title this year. These are different times. We live in different times now. Mental health. All of these things are treated far differently than they were even just 5 years ago, let alone 10, 15, 20 years ago. We live in a different world in terms of the landscape of how we treat mental health, off the court issues, substance abuse, whatever proclivities one may have. And you hope Ja Morant gets the help he needs. Monday night, Memphis coach Taylor Jenkins told reporters Ja's fully engaged in this process and ready for whatever comes after the next 2 games. In a statement, Morant said he takes full responsibility for his actions. 5 years. And think about this, though. Let me finish with this. 5 years, $231 million for Ja Morant. He got 5 years, $231 million that begins next season. So they have every incentive in the world to get this kid right. They could say all they want that it's because, it's his well-being and all that, but they've got 231 million reasons. I mean, that's a guaranteed contract. This isn't like the NFL. This isn't like, other sports where you don't have guaranteed money. This is guaranteed money to Ja Morant. I mean, with that kind of money going his way, if they can't get him right, you could set back that franchise easily 5 or 6 years. So they have every motivation in the world to get him right. Besides the one that should be top of mind, which is just the kid's mental well-being. 23 years old. Vic Tafur on the Raiders signing of Jimmy Garoppolo coming up on the other side. I'm Jason Page. The cashing continues on SportsMap Radio.
He's got the cap space to carry that tag. Tagging him seemed like the most sensible way to 10.1 million, whatever. But it seemed like this was the
with them still. I don't expect so it doesn't hurt them that bad, but just yet, in terms of their immediate future, they're about 39 million.
like this was the way it was going.
Yeah, I don't think this is
on a year-to-year deal. So I
Yep. Not surprised. Not surprised. Welcome back to the show. Matt Verder. Thank you for being with us, SportsMap Radio. Today. Now, I'm going to ask you. Thank you for being with us, SportsMap Radio. SportsMap Radio app. Good to have you with us tonight. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you have any questions, you want me to pop into our guest, Nick Hamilton. If you text me something good, I might do it. 888-670-8549, 888-670-8549. Nick is the founder of Nightcast Media. Also, catch him on Sirius XM Radio. Gives us a few minutes today. Now, I'm going to ask you about LA sports here because there's a few different things going on. But first off, I want to get your reaction on the Aaron Rodgers to the Jets stuff and sort of the slow drip that we've all been subjected to here over the last, only because we talked about it at the top of the show tonight. I'm curious from where you're sitting, what you make of the way this divorce is sort of happening, this slow motion car crash.
It's interesting because you hear a lot of reports, you can hear a lot of things even away from the reports that indicate that he's more than likely going to be a new Jet. You thought for a moment they actually cleared cap space and they actually were on the phone with Aaron Rodgers, or at least his reps. And sometimes it's time to move on and move forward. And the Packers drafted Jordan Love for a reason. He's a young quarterback. And the Packers have need to turn the page. And I think if Aaron Rodgers wants to continue playing football, the New York Jets may be the best place for him to play football. I think it's going to be making a more competitive conference, especially with the Miami Dolphins recently did with Jalen Ramsey adding into that secondary. So now you got the Miami Dolphins, you have the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, and now you potentially could have Aaron Rodgers in that same division. And nobody's talking about the Patriots. Who knew? So I think it's is. I think when you look at overall, like, the perspective of the AFC East, it makes it fun again. It makes the AFC East fun again. They're no longer going to be the AFC East. And I think Aaron Rodgers is a shot in arm to the New York Jets leader Robert Saleh needs to make sure that his key card continues to work with the New York Jets organization. So he ain't trying to move around. He ain't trying to go back and move around. I think he's pretty settled in New York or in Jersey. And I think that's where he wants to remain. But in order for that, he's going to have to win games. So you need a quarterback in this quarterback-driven league to get you some wins to get to the playoffs.
Talking with Nick Hamilton, founder of Nightcast Media, also SiriusXM Radio. You can catch him there. Is basically everything available? Is it like a yard sale for the Rams right now? You saw Ramsey go. They're saying Matthew Stafford's that they're not getting rid of him, but I think if they could find somebody to take that monstrosity of a contract that they have to pay him, that they would. Is basically everybody available now?
The LA Rams have become the Florida Marlins back in the late 90s. Remember those fire sales of Florida Marlins?
Yes, I do.
Everything must know. Double coupon day. That's what I feel the Rams have become, unfortunately. I think I agree with you. I think if they find the right deal that fits them for Matthew Stafford so they can unload that hefty contract, that Death Row Records contract that they decided to sign, he decided to force them into, I think all bets, I think nothing is off the table. I mean, outside of Cooper Kupp, I think nothing is off the table. It wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, if they trade Allen Robinson to get that contract off the book. Hell, they might even try to trade Van Jefferson at some point. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And then you have to question, okay, what is Aaron Donald really coming into this coming season? What does he have left to prove? Because this team is obviously not going to be a quality team that they've been in a couple of years, that they were a couple of years ago. So it begs the question, like, okay, does Aaron Donald come back, or does he retire? Or does he play one more season and then just say, hey, man, I'm going to hang it up? He's an automatic Hall of Famer, first ballot, if you ask me. And what else does he have left to prove, to be honest with you? Like, what else is there left?
Is there any sense, Nick, would he want to even play somewhere else if he still feels like playing, or do you think he wants to retire a Ram?
I think he wants to retire a Ram. I think he likes. I mean, the Rams organization is one of the great organizations in the league, right? And I think they have some very smart people in their organization. I just think that they never built this team to be a dynasty like we've seen in Kansas City, for example. Like Kansas City built those teams to be a dynasty. That's why they won 2 Super Bowls out of the 3 trips that they made to the Super Bowl, because they built dynasties, and they're continuing to build. As long as they have a healthy Patrick Mahomes and surround him with weapons, they're going to continue to be at least competitive and make deep playoff runs, if not get to the Super Bowl and win another one in the foreseeable future. So I think the Rams have to go kind of start from scratch. I think that they're cap heavy. I mean, they are extremely cap heavy, and they're going to be in some serious trouble for the next couple of years until they get out of this situation and really build that team. And I think they need to learn from these experiences that, look, you need to start building for a dynasty. I think you need to start it. You did what you needed to do as far as cashing all your chips in and got you a Super Bowl, which was great. And now I think you have to realize, okay, look, this is LA. You're going to have to compete in this very competitive market. This is a Dodger and Laker town. You also have USC football back on the rise. If Lincoln Riley can somehow somehow get into the college football playoff, which he was just a game away from doing this past season, if he can figure that out and get into the college football playoff, and let's say they make the national championship, who do you think LA is going to be talking about? They're going to be talking about the USC Chargers and Lincoln Riley. They're not going to be talking about the Los Angeles Rams, not in the most positive light, especially if they're not winning ball games. So you have to really make sure that you stay in that tier. If you're going to be the third team to be talked about in Los Angeles and recognized and respected, you're going to have to start winning ball games and start winning championships.
Nick Hamilton, Nick Hamilton is the founder of Nightcast Media. Also catch him over on SiriusXM, joining us here in our 2-for-1 tonight on the Cash In SportsMap Radio, talking all things LA sports. Moving in over to the NBA here for a second here, and I know you love the Clippers. Give me some thoughts on this Clipper team. You know what sold me? I've been waiting, for Kawhi and this whole team to be sort of together. I was curious to see how Westbrook would be integrated into what they do. But it was the game against Denver that they lost. I think it was like a Saturday or Sunday night, maybe 2 weeks ago. That I started to come around a little bit because I wanted to see how they played on the road, and they didn't have Zubats in that game. I was interested to see how they played in that spot on the road, and they basically played Denver to a draw. And there wasn't anything that I came away from in that game that said to me they couldn't do that in a 7-game series against that team. I like the way they match up with them. Give me some thoughts. And look, Jokic is a nightmare for a lot of teams. Give me some thoughts on what you've seen here out of the Clippers as of late, and whether you're buying the idea that regardless of where they are in this jumbled Western Conference, playoff seeding, that they can make a run.
I think it depends on where they're seated. They can make a run. I went to the Knicks game on Saturday when they played the Clippers, and the thing about the Clippers is that they came out in the second half with a lot more intensity, a lot more discipline. But I think it's not just up to PG and Kawhi. PG and Kawhi they combined for 60 points on Saturday against the Knicks in that win. I'm not concerned about PG and Kawhi. I'm more concerned about the surrounding pieces. Marcus Morris Sr. was not being consistent as he should have been. Mason Plumlee out there looking like the Pillsbury Doughboy, soft as baby food when it comes to being under the basket and not being as aggressive as he was when he first came, when he was first traded to the Clippers. So I need to see that intensity back in Mason Plumlee, especially in the paint and under the basket. Also, too, Russell Westbrook. I mean, he's like I said, he's been up and down like a stock exchange. So I think, Russell. It's going to be interesting to see how Russell Westbrook continues to fit into the Ty Lue's offense because he looked absolutely putrid on Saturday. I mean, Eric Gordon. Thank God for Eric Gordon being able to really kind of rally the troops a little bit and really get things going. And when you have PG and Kawhi in that mix, it's really hard to, stop those guys. But I'm just looking at defensive, like transition defense is going to have to improve. I think they're rebounding and keeping teams from getting a lot of second chance opportunities, especially when you're in a 7-game series in the playoffs. So you mentioned Denver, which I'm not really high on. But the team that really concerns me are the Phoenix Suns. I think if you have a healthy Kevin Durant with the three juggernauts and Devin Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, I think that's going to be a very, very big time brick wall for the Clippers, especially if they have to match up in the first round. I think you're going to say Warriors have to look out for them, but I think the sleeper team that you really got to look out for are the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think the Sacramento Kings are that Cinderella story that is really for real. It's not a fairy tale. I think they are legit. I like the leadership of Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I like the Aaron Fox's leadership abilities. And I think Mike Brown should be definitely up for Coach of the Year. If not, he should win Coach of the Year.
I'm with you.
Because of what he was able to accomplish in one season with that franchise, with that team, and really, really develop an identity for that team, and really develop a culture for that team.
I got to run, Nick, but always appreciate it, and I'm with you on the Kings. Thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Nick. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Good to have you with us tonight. Text from David in Austin listening on the Horn. Says, I want to know what your thoughts are on why Texas didn't get a 1 seed when they beat Kansas twice, once in the regular season, the other for the conference tournament championship. Because this isn't college football. That's why. And they take an entire body of work. Simple as that. And Kansas playing without its head coach. Texas is a good team, though. Texas is a good team. They will be a tough 2 seed. Be a very tough 2 seed. But that, I gotta say, that blowout of Kansas was impressive. I think that was the biggest loss Kansas had all year. You know what, though? I mean, look, I get the home court that comes with being a 1 seed and all that stuff, but you're a good basketball team. You're going to go and be able to win. There's so much parity in college basketball this year. I've said this over and over again. By the way, not to run away from Texas for a second. See, you already got a job. It didn't take very long, did it? Chris Beard has already been hired. I thought he might have to wait a little while, take an assistant job somewhere, maybe go coach D2. Ole Miss hires Chris Beard to be their new head basketball coach. That didn't take long, did it? Ole Miss announcing on Monday it's hired Chris Beard, who was fired by Texas in early January after he was charged with felony domestic violence following a dispute with his fiancée at their home in Austin in December. But again, charge was dropped in mid-February. Public statements made by Beard's fiancée certainly helped in that effort. His fiancée said through a statement from her attorney she had initiated the confrontation with Beard. He acted in self-defense. Police officers said they found a bite mark on her right arm and abrasions on her body. After they were called, Beard was immediately placed on leave. Rodney Terry became the team's interim coach. You all know the rest by now. Chris Beard, just like that, replaces Kermit Davis at Ole Miss. And he's going to have to go there and rebuild that program. So, in some ways, it still is a reclamation project when you talk about the future of Chris Beard. So that from college basketball. All right, a few baseball notes to end the show. First of all, Puerto Rico, perfect in their 10-0 win at the World Baseball Classic. Now, perfect game against Israel. I mean, it's a perfect game against Israel. Yes, there's been some good Israeli baseball players in the history of Major League Baseball. Sandy Koufax comes to mind. Sean Green is another one. There's been a few. But Jock Peterson is on that Israeli team. But a perfect game for Puerto Rico, an 8-inning perfect game. And again, the final was 10-0. So Puerto Rico, I guess that was in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. A perfect game and a mercy rule win, 10-0. Coolest story of the day in sports, dare I say. Coolest story of the entire day. I'll save that. I'll get to the coolest story in a second. There's one more kind of want story. Trevor Bauer, you remember him? Former Cy Young Award winner just a few years ago. Trevor Bauer, nobody wants him. Signing a 1-year deal to play in Japan for the Yokohama Dana Bay Stars of Nippon Professional Baseball. So nearly 2 years after his lengthy suspension from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Trevor Bauer has to go pitch in Japan. He's only 32 years old. We're not talking about a guy that's, 36, 37. This isn't Manny, after steroid suspensions and stuff like that, not being able to find a team, having to go play in Taiwan or whatever it is. This is Trevor Bauer having to go and play in Japan because no Major League Baseball teams will even touch him. 2.5, pitched an ERA just over 2.5 in his final season with the Dodgers. I mean, the guy is an amazing pitcher, but too toxic for any team to touch. And, just as I read that Chris Beard story before, where again, wasn't convicted of anything, but certainly Texas had enough information that they saw fit to let him go from that school. And again, it's college, it's institutions of higher learning, it's teenagers that you're trying to mold into great young men. And I get that there's a problem with having a guy like Chris Beard as the head coach at Texas if that's what you're trying to do. But it's funny, Ole Miss is still like, it's all right. We'll make it work. If you can get us some wins, we can look past all that quote-unquote other stuff. But Trevor Bauer, who is still, and we're talking about a young 32 because he basically hasn't pitched over the last 2 years. You wonder if any Major League Baseball team will even touch him. Let's just say he goes over there and lights it up in the Nippon Professional Baseball League. In a year from now, are we still in the same situation? Or is Trevor Bauer still going to be looking for a team to give him an opportunity? Thing is, look, a lot of teams have starting pitching. I wonder if it was a question of the teams that wanted to, if there were teams that wanted to sign him, if they were just simply teams that he didn't want to play for. And it should be mentioned, Trevor Bauer in the past said he had interest in playing in Japan. Twitter bio includes his name spelled out in Japanese characters. And in 2020, when he officially reached free agency, he tweeted, "I'll consider offers from any Major League Baseball team or Nippon professional baseball team." So there you go. Middle of the road Japanese league team is where Trevor Bauer winds up going. All right, last but not least, best story of the day in sports. This kid for Nicaragua. This is the coolest story you're going to get all day. This kid from Nicaragua is pitching in the World Baseball Classic. He strikes out the side in 1 inning. Okay? Duque Hebert is his name. Team Nicaragua lost to the Dominican Republic on Monday. This 21-year-old 5'9" right-hander struck out Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, and Rafael Devers in the 9th inning of that 6-1 loss. And what happened? The Detroit Tigers said, "We're giving you a contract." One of the Tigers scouts, Luis Molina, found Hebert as he was leaving Lone Depot Park in Miami, asked him a handful of questions, signed him to a minor league deal just like that. How cool is that? Announcement was made on the bus in front of the whole team. He also gave up a double to Manny Machado in his lone inning of work. Throws in the low 90s with sinkers, mid 80s changeups, low 90s sliders. That's really cool. Imagine you're just some unknown from Nicaragua, and now you're going to play professional baseball. That's really awesome. Those are the kinds of stories you need to get once in a while. When you have all this stuff, all this crap that we have to talk about in the course of a day. It's this kid living his dream. Pitching for Team Nicaragua, and now he's going to be pitching at least in the minor leagues and has a shot at one day living out his dream pitching in Major League Baseball. All right, I lied. One more. Jacob deGrom finally pitched in a minor league game, thinks he'll be ready for opening day. hoping to be ready for opening day. After a minor setback at the start of spring training, DeGrom threw 24 pitches in a minor league game on Monday. Said he didn't locate well in his first couple of batters. Boy, the Rangers got to have him ready for the start of the season. 5 years, $185 million. I guess that's why you baby him. It's going to wrap it up for us tonight. We're back on Tuesday. We'll see if we have any news on Aaron Rodgers. Nice job, Justin Barbosa. I'm Jason Page, the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. Bye! Have a good night. Talk to you tomorrow. All right, that does it for us on the video side as well. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you back here on Tuesday. Hopefully Patrick McEnroe on the show. And, yeah, that's going to do it. See you all back here on Tuesday. Have a great night. Thanks for watching. Bye.